Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being with us. My name is Mrinalini, and I am one of the directors of the Banyan, Balm and Aladamara Foundation. Today is a momentous day in the life of the Banyan, and over the past 31 years, all of you have brought us to where we are. But we would like to welcome you to invite Ms. Shweta Rawat, for whom this, because of whom all this happened in terms of, securing one of the most important programs of the Banyan. And we wanted to introduce you, Shweta, to the city of Chennai, which made the Banyan happen. So thank you very much for being with us, and thank you all for being here. Before I hand over to my colleague Akila, I would like to take a moment to mention the late Professor Parshuraman, who introduced the Hans Foundation, Shweta Rawat, and Rural India Supporting Trust to us. He has done this and so much more for the Banyan, Balm, and many other organizations. So we would be remiss if we do not mention him and the tremendous contributions that he has made to education for the underprivileged in India. Akila, I will request you to speak a little more on RIST, and then we'll get started. Thanks again, everybody.
Good evening, everybody. I'll put on my glasses now because it's either you or my notes, so right now it's going to be. I'm Akila, a consultant with the Banyan, and I work closely with the partnerships team. Thank you, Mrinalini, and I thank all of you once again for joining us as we celebrate the spirit of community inclusion and all kinds of diversity, especially neurodiversity. It is a real honor for me to be the one to introduce to you a very special and long-standing partner of ours, the Rural India Supporting Trust, represented here today by its Managing Director, Shweta Rawat. Since 2007, the Rural India Supporting Trust, or RIST as we refer to them, has worked with organizations across India to bring accessible, affordable, and quality services to vulnerable communities. With a very strong focus on healthcare, education, disability inclusion, and the environment, RIST believes in creating meaningful impact through valuable partnerships and interventions across the country. Their core mission envisions an equitable India that supports and empowers every individual to recognize and achieve their potential. The Banyan shares with RIST a common goal of enabling mental health care access for persons living in poverty and homelessness, and both organizations are deeply committed to the same set of values: equity, justice, social inclusion. It is these shared goals and values that have contributed to an invaluable partnership spanning over a decade now, wherein RIST has supported the Banyan's flagship Home Again program. You will hear more about it today, but very briefly, this program focuses on providing innovative, positive pathways for clients to rejoin family homes or supports their independence to find a new setting which they can call a home. The unstinting support of RIST has also resulted in the Home Again model being taken to scale, advocacy and consensus building, and most significantly, the complete reimagining of rights-based care paradigms across the country. Through this journey, we've been supported wholeheartedly by RIST's team, headed by Paul Glick. A huge thank you to Paul. Paul could not be here today, and the rest of the team that we work with very closely. I'd like to hand over now to Sangamitra, one of the directors at the Banyan, for the first panel. The program today is divided into 4 panels, lasting about an hour or so. This particular panel will be on the origin, the history, and the contextualization of the Home Again program. Over to you, Sangamitra.
Hi, everyone. It's lovely to see a lot of friends in the crowd, and we're making new friends tonight as well, as we all say hello to Shweta and thank her and RIST for everything that they've offered the Banyan in terms of collaboration and friendship over the years. For our first panel today, I'd like to call upon Ms. Poonam Natarajan, a pioneer of disability and development activities in India and the former chairperson of the National Trust at the Ministry of Social Welfare and the founder of Vidyasagar. Welcome, ma'am. Next, I'd like to, with some thoughts on the critical nature and significance of long-term care needs among homeless persons with psychosocial disabilities, including the percentage of the population that requires long-term care.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the historical aspects of long-term care emerged from elderly care, basically. And we as a country are realizing that more and more people will require long-term care because of social, economic, political, financial, family value system changes that we are going through. As a result, there are people who are unable to receive or continue care at home. And this remains a very, very important challenge that we see. Approximately 1/3 of people who are homeless with mental health problems face this challenge of inability to go back to their families, or not able to join their families, or their families do not want them. In such a situation, the issue of long-term care has to be examined in detail. 40 years ago, when mental health became an important issue, no one realized that India will face a situation where we have to consider long-term care as an option, which invariably could be a psychiatric institution, and that will be the worst kind of a scenario that one could envisage. But long-term care, as we have seen, an innovation that was developed by the Banyan, is a very rational, path-breaking kind of innovation, solution that we have to offer for not only the country, but for most developing countries who are dealing with this kind of a situation. So therefore, 1/3 of people who are homeless with mental health problems will require long-term care, and those long-term care options are many. One of them is the home again. Another is a long-term care in the form of a hostel, or a small proportion, approximately 1 in 10 people who were homeless and mentally ill will ultimately require to be hospitalized for the rest of their life. Unfortunately, the total number of beds in the country is only 20,000 hospital beds, and therefore long-term care in that context also is very, very difficult. So the biggest solution we have found for long-term care is to community alternative for people with mental health problems. Fortunately for us, the 2017 mental health legislation makes it possible, and this way we are showing new options to the world, and we all have to feel proud that a country like India can also provide solutions to the world in the form of alternatives for long-term care, which includes choice, dignity, good quality of life, and guarantee for continued care in our context.
Thank you, Dr. Kishore. I think that was some excellent context that segues us into our next question for Lakshmi. Lakshmi, could you please provide a little bit of an overview of the Home Again program's genesis and evolution, highlighting some key research findings from the various investigations that we've undertaken, including the Grand Challenges Canada cycles through the years, Also appreciate, I think, some insights on the comprehensive study commissioned by the Hans Foundation, which aim to formulate a national framework for inclusive community-based care options for individuals with mental illness in India.
Thank you, Sangamitra. So how did Home Again begin at the Banyan? I think it was a very organic process which involved dialogue with service users with both histories of homelessness and serious mental health conditions. So 2002, there was a group at the Banyan who were working and wanted to live independently. So they said, let's rent a house. And very close to the Banyan, they rented a house. It was an affinity group, so it's a small friendship group. And they said that we'd like to explore that option. And few years later, another such peer group formed called Virdugal, which means roots of the banyan tree. And they moved to Kovalam, which is about 40 kilometers off Chennai, a small fishing village. And some of them had children as well. So when they were brought into the Banyan, their children had been taken to children's institutions. They said that we'd like to raise our children ourselves, and we're a group of friends. We want to have this formed family where we support each other and raise our children as well. And that was the first beginnings of, some of our women going out into the community, trying to occupy space, rent, live with their children, live life on their own terms, exploring employment, shopping, having conversations at the water spout with the neighbors. Based on some of the learnings that we had from these experiments, I think when the capacity at our Emergency Care and Recovery Center, what was once known as Adekalam, was predominantly 8 and 10 beds were occupied by those who'd been with us for a year or more. And we said, this is an option that perhaps can be available for anybody. Why should we decide when to discharge somebody or not to discharge somebody? Why do you even evaluate this person? People have stayed for at least a year. And this is where they are at. They're not able to go back to their families. They're not able to move into completely independent living arrangements. Why don't we offer the appropriate supports in a community setting itself? That's when we began renting out homes in both urban neighborhoods as well as rural neighborhoods, just as how any of us would. Began renting these houses. 4 to 5 women would come together and they would start living in these family-like arrangements with staff support on site available, so we call them personal assistants, and the supports can range. For somebody, it can simply be about relearning how money works in the modern world. For somebody else, it can be figuring out transport. For somebody else, it can be as basic as being able to support with their bathing every day. It's a whole wide range of supports that we offer, and this is what we see today. So 2014 is when we did our first large-scale implementation. Majority of it was in rural villages which were already being served by a community mental health program. And we've come this far now. You will hear later some of our peer leaders actually speak about their experiences in more detail. So we'll leave it for that panel. And what we actually found through this entire journey. So we've evaluated it using different kinds of research designs, including comparing what happens when people move into a home versus what happens when they stay back in the institution. And we saw phenomenal results in terms of symptoms actually reducing, disability reducing significantly, people moving on back to their homes, people that we thought we won't find families for, suddenly after several decades return back to their families, make those connections again. So I think all of that motivated us to take it forward a bit more. This is just a brief about the Home Again history. In terms of what we found regarding long-term care in state psychiatric facilities, again it was funded by the Hans Foundation. It was a multi-partner study. So Banyan was one of the partners. There were several partners who were engaged in interviewing face-to-face people who had lived for 1 year or more across 40 plus state psychiatric facilities that are in India. And 37% are actually living for 1 year or more. So 37% of beds in 2019 is when the study was done, and the scenario doesn't seem to have changed too much going by recent NHRC reports as well. Although some states have undertaken certain efforts. And what was very stark about our findings is that more than 3/4 of them did not need to be in a hospital setting at all. So they demonstrated, complete readiness to sort of live outside of the hospital if provided the opportunity to do so. So I think that motivated us in terms of next steps, working with different governments, working with different partners, and trying to build this model as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Our next question is for Ms. Natarajan. Ma'am, drawing from your extensive experience and expertise, could you tell us a little bit then about, given this context, how innovative models like the Home Again program could potentially play a transformative role, advancing not just social inclusion but also community integration among neurodivergent individuals across the board in diverse contexts?
Thank you. Well, I want to start with my visit to the Home Again projects, which I went with Lakshmi many years gone by. I think it was around 2014. And I was just amazed because there were, all of us, when you think about living independently in the community, the biggest first problem is the problem of stigma. And can you find a house where people with disabilities can live? There's a big, huge problem of landlords who will not give you that house. And they don't even give it to families who have a child with disability. So leave alone giving it to a group of people with the neurodevelopmental disabilities. But what I found it was most amazed was how the neighborhood had accepted those Home Again group homes so well. Children from the neighborhoods were coming and playing over there, and that was amazing. And when we reached then, we were asking for this house. We had to meet Lakshmi. Then people they didn't say, my experience in Delhi was when we had set up a place in Delhi, and when I was trying to locate it, and I reached a wrong road, and they said, Pagalkhana, the madhouse. But here you want the Banyan house? Yes, it's there. So there was a lot of positive body language, and so most amazing was the work that you did with the community to get the groups accepted there. And I think that's breaking very fresh ground, because that's what we are always worried about. And that's how parents' associations in the National Trust also only want to do institutions. And we've always been thinking of what are the alternatives and where can we get that community support, and how can we have people with disabilities also living in the community, also living more autonomous lives, not kind of a top-down institutional. So all of us working with people with disabilities have always thought of how to move out of institutions. And I want to congratulate Banyan, because I think you're the change makers. You've done a great job. And many congratulations for having, first of all, found homes where landlords have given you the home. Secondly, made sure that the communities around have changed their perspective, and that stigma has reduced. Then to find healthcare workers and to find personal assistants. It's a big job. We run programs for training caregivers. Nobody wants to do that job. You can't find people who want to be a caregiver. And it's like you have to really keep on trying. If you want to train 10 caregivers, locating locating 10 people for the training is quite a job. So I think that's finding the people to do this. And the other is quite seamlessly, it looks like, what I've read of the work with the Banyan, is to give choices to people with disabilities. There's that, oppression, parents are overprotective, but of course, you have, chosen 3 vulnerabilities. You've got women, you've got homeless, and you've got people with psychosocial disabilities. And these are huge, but you've found and made a model. And that's what I really think and admire about the work. And now you've been able to upscale it. And I think what you need to really think about is, let's not have women, only people with psychosocial disabilities in Home Again. Let other disabilities also join and be part of this, because you've taken the leadership, and I don't know, we are still struggling to find the ways and means to really look at living in the community independently as a plausible way for people with other neurodevelopmental disabilities. So that's been huge, I think, as far as if we want to create inclusive societies, And we don't want to just, again, create little projects with one disability. I would urge Banyan to think of, making it more inclusive. And as they go ahead to all these other states, I think that's a thing to think about. Because my aim and dream at the moment is to disrupt these small institutions, which are homes which parents' associations are building across this country. Every parent association has a dream. And at the National Trust, everybody wanted funding only for that, to build one institution which would be top down, where they could safely house their wards, so to say. But I don't think that's the answer. We know that's not the answer. We know we want to create a more open, inclusive, egalitarian place. We want to reduce the stigma. And I'm just going to tail you people and follow you and try and find an answer to that. So many congratulations and thank you. And I think this is one model which, in the Indian condition, has really worked well. And you've been able to upscale it to all the other states, and you've been able to do quite a rigorous amount of research, is what I've seen, of how to put it together. What are the issues that are coming up, and finding solutions for these issues. Mostly one of manpower, mostly one of acceptance. And so thank you for doing this. And I'm sure we can, it's going to be something that will move forward and really across the country, I'm sure it will become one big, huge model. So thanks a lot, and congratulations for being the change makers in community living and living independently in the community, or as we call it at our center, interdependently in the community. Because if we say independently, they'll say, no. Disabled people can't live independently. So we call it living interdependently. But that all of us live interdependently. So thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you, ma'am. So, Dr. Kishore, a question for you here. In the context of the Banyan's Home Again model, which has been recognized by the World Health Organization as one of the best practices of community mental health services from around the world, could you talk a little bit about some strategic approaches to ensuring inclusion and integration for homeless persons with psychosocial disabilities from a psychiatric mental health care perspective?
Thank you, Sangamitra, for asking me that question. In today's context, Home Again has come to stay, and that seems to be the most human rights friendly, inclusive approach to restore dignity for people who are neglected by their families, or who don't want to go back to their families, or people who are struggling with intractable mental illness. All put together, this problem has to be addressed in a solution which is community based. If one thinks of institution, the whole world is thinking that we should close down institutions because institutions are expensive, they are degrading, that does not produce good quality of life, it does not give you an opportunity to live life once again. Whereas in the context of Home Again, all of these things are magically reversed, and therefore you have a situation where a person enjoys freedom, lives life with dignity, has a choice to do what he or she wants, and the person is able to lead a productive life. If you look at people with mental illness, the total number of people who are productively employed is not more than 12%. In other words, 8 or 9 of the 10 mentally ill people live a disabled life, they are burdened to their families, or they are dependent on the society, which is a situation which we don't desire. Whereas Home Again is able to think of opening up this opportunity for people to live in the community itself is a magical way to make them independent, earn their living, live life with dignity. As she said, it is one of the most critical ingredients to eradicate stigma. The last one is to say that this is going to prevent homelessness once again. If a person becomes homeless, the society spends 40% more resource in managing that individual compared to those person who is living with the family. So therefore, homelessness is a very expensive option. It is not financially viable. It is going to make the society much more poor, and endurance to deal with these problems becomes very, very difficult. And many of the homeless people who did not have an opportunity to live in this context would have disappeared from the face of this earth. So therefore, the strategic way forward is to think of an option which is inclusive, which promotes dignity, and give an opportunity for the person to live in the community like any one of us. And we found that, Lakshmi has said, there is enough evidence to say that these people can lead productive lives. And mental illness and productive life is a big news to the whole world, to the scientific community, to say this person who has mental illness is now leading a productive life. What he does, what she does is irrespective, but what is important is that person is productive. The second aspect is stigma significantly disappears. As she said, in a particular location, where are these people? Are those mentally ill people? Are you talking about them? But today, it is not so. They don't even mention about the Banyan. Banyan has homes where people live, and they are no different from us. Is the most desegmentizing experience that one can think of. And lastly, this is a very inexpensive model which can guarantee place in the society, and that can be easily replicated across the country. If you look at what is the burden which Home Again will address in a given district of 1 million population, approximately 4,000 people will have this need at some time. If at all, this proportion will become more as we evolve as a society, because the society is becoming very, very self-centric, not caring for others because of various reasons. So development is making us non-caring, and in this context, disabled people are the most vulnerable people who will be left behind, and Home Again is a magical solution. Rightly so, the World Health Organization recognizes this as one of the 21 innovations which gives hope, life for people with mental illness across low-income countries, even middle-income countries. For example, if you compare the Home Again model in India and compare it with any other developed country, probably people in India live better life compared to any other developed country. That is the most important solution that Home Again has produced. And the strategy is to advocate that there are people who will require this support. The governments, organizations will have to think of providing a solution of this nature which is radically different. Advocacy, continued research, people's participation is going to be the key strategy to promote and accept Home Again as an alternative for long-term care in India.
Thank you, Dr. Kishore. With that, we wrap our first panel of the evening. A round of applause to our wonderful panelists today. And at this time, we'd also like to thank Grand Challenges Canada and the National Institute of Health Research UK for the sustained commitment and invaluable support that they've provided the Home Again program over a long time. Their long-term partnership has been also instrumental in transforming the landscape of mental health care delivery across India through the Home Again program. And the evolution and the growth of the program stands as a testament to the power of collaborative partnerships such as RIST and GCC and NIHR. And we remain deeply appreciative of the continued faith that they have in the Banyan. We also remain in gratitude of the Tamil Nadu government and the Directorate of the Welfare for Differently Abled and the governments of Maharashtra, Kerala and Andhra for their continued support and vision in the growth of the Home Again program. Thank you. Thank you so much. I now welcome my colleague, Senior Research Associate Deepika Easwaran from the Banyan Academy of Leadership in Mental Health to take over and introduce you all to our second panel.
Thank you, Sangamitra. Lived experience has always been at the heart of our work and has shaped the very foundations of the Home Again approach. The voices of the people we work with have been pivotal in reshaping our notions of family, of kinship, of home, of recovery, and of care. I'm very happy to welcome and introduce our next set of speakers. This session will center stories from the Banyan of first-hand experience navigating mental health challenges and co-creating ecosystems of care. We will start the session off with Ms. Amli Margaret. Ms. Amli is a dedicated peer leader with a passion for community care and has been the Banyan's Home Again program lead in Trichy for the past 8 years, overseeing care coordination across 10 homes, managing administrative and accounting duties, and ensuring top-notch client care for 50 service users. We will also have Ms. Kirtana Rajagopalan, co-lead of the Center for Mental Health and Inclusive Development at the Banyan, to offer interpretation support.
என் பேர் அமலி. திருச்சியில் லீட் பண்ணிகிட்டு இருக்கேன். திருச்சியில் ப்ரோக்ராமை நான் லீட் பண்ணிகிட்டு இருக்கேன். எப்படின்னா எங்கள் அக்காவும் நான் 2 சிஸ்டர் நாங்கள் திருச்சியில். நாங்கள் மனநல பாதிக்கப்பட்டதாக பேனியன் எங்களுக்கு தெரியும். பேனியன் தெரிஞ்சால் கூட பேனியனில் சரியாகி அதுக்கப்புறம் திருச்சியில் வந்து மனநல பாதிக்கப்பட்டவங்களுக்காக வேலை செய்யணும்னு எனக்கு ஒரு ஆசை. அது ஏன் அப்படின்னா திருச்சியில் மனநல பாதிக்கப்பட்டவங்கனாவே ஃபஸ்ட்டு என்ன பண்ணுவாங்கன்னா, மனநல பாதிக்கப்பட்டவங்கன்னா ஃபஸ்ட்டு அவங்களுக்கு என்னன்னே தெரியாது அங்கிட்டு. ரெண்டாவது விஷயம் என்னென்னா, ஏன் மனநல பாதிக்கப்பட்டவங்கள சொல்கிறதுக்கு வெட்கப்படுவாங்க. ஸோ மனநல பாதிக்கப்பட்டவங்கன்னா சொன்னால் நம்ம சமுதாயத்தில் நம்மளை ஏற்றுக்க மாட்டாங்களோ, கேவலமாக பார்ப்பாங்களோ அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு இது, அதனால் வெளியில் சொல்ல மாட்டாங்க. ரெண்டாவது, வசதி இருக்கவங்க உள்ளுக்குள்ளாரே ட்ரீட்மெண்ட் எடுத்து இறந்துருவாங்க. வசதி இல்லாதவங்க ரோட்டில் இருந்து இறந்துருவாங்க. அந்த மாதிரி சூழ்நிலையை தான் நான் எங்கள் ஊரில் திருச்சியில் பார்த்துருக்கேன். அதனால பேனியனுக்கு வந்ததுக்கப்புறம் எனக்கு பயங்கர ஆசை எங்கள் கம்யூனிட்டியில் பண்ணணுன்னு நான் மேம்கிட்ட கேட்டப்ப என்னை நம்பி நான் அங்கே 2000 ஆரம்பிக்கணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி நான் ரொம்ப கேட்டப்ப அவங்க என் மேலே ரொம்ப நம்பிக்கை வச்சு பண்ணுவேனா, நான் ஒரு சரியில்லை அதை பண்ணுவேன்னு அவங்க ரொம்ப நம்பி எனக்கு பண்ணினாங்க. 2017 நாங்கள் 2 ஹோம் ஆரம்பித்தோம். 2 ஹோம் 10 கிளைண்ட் வச்சு நாங்கள் ஃபஸ்ட்டு ஆரம்பித்தப்ப அங்கேயும் நிறைய எதிர்ப்புங்களாக இருந்துச்சு. ஊரில் கம்யூனிட்டியில் ரொம்ப பேர் பயந்தாங்க, தரமாட்டேனாங்க, நிறைய விதமான இதெல்லாம் சேலஞ்செல்லாம் இது பண்ணி அதையும் தாண்டி நாங்கள் பண்ணணும். இப்போ 2024 பாருங்கள், 10 ஹவுஸு, 50 கிளைண்ட்டு, ஒரு பெரிய பில்டிங்கு கனிமொழி மேம் வந்து திறந்தாங்க, பெரிய பில்டிங்கு. அதுக்கப்புறம் அந்த கம்யூனிட்டியில் மனநல கணவனால் இழந்தவங்க பெண்களுக்கு வேலை வாய்ப்பு, அந்த மாதிரி விஷயம். அப்புறம் இப்போ நலம்னு சொல்ல ஒன்று ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணி அதில் ஒரு 30 பேர் ஒர்க் பண்ணுறாங்க. இவ்வளோ விஷயமும் எப்படி என்னால் பண்ண முடிச்சுன்னா, என்னை நம்பி ஆரம்பித்த அவங்க வந்தனா மேமுக்கு நான் தேங்க் பண்ணுறேன். அடுத்து கடவுளுக்கு தேங்க் பண்ணுறேன். இதெல்லாம் நடக்கிறதுக்கு காரணம் என்னன்னா, இதெல்லாம் பார்க்குறதுக்கு எங்கள் அம்மா அப்பா இல்லை, அது ஒரு வருத்தம் தான் எனக்கு. இப்போ அந்த கம்யூனிட்டியில் எனக்கு நிறைய பாருங்கள் சொல்லவே முடியாத சந்தோஷங்கள். அந்த கம்யூனிட்டியில் ஒருத்த கூட அன்னைக்கு என் கூட பேசலை, மனநல சரியில்லாமல் இருந்தப்ப. இன்றைக்கி அந்த கம்யூனிட்டியை என்னை பார்த்து ரொம்ப, அதாவது இப்போ நான் நடந்து போனோம் எனக்கு பயமாக இருக்கும், எனக்கிட்ட எல்லாரும் ஹெல்ப் கேட்பாங்க, அதுக்குன்னே பயந்துக்கிட்டு நான் வண்டியில் போயிடுவேன். அப்போ பார்க்குறதே எனக்கு எந்த அளவுக்கு அந்த கம்யூனிட்டி என்னை ஏற்றுருக்குன்னு சொல்லிட்டு, இன்றைக்கி அந்த ஊர் ஈஓ, ஆர்ஐ, தாசில்தார், சின்ன சின்ன அந்த ஊரில் இருக்க என்ஜிஓ கம்பெனிங்க, பக்கத்தில் இருக்கிற ஆளுங்க எல்லாமே எனக்கு சப்போர்ட்டாக இருக்கிறாங்க. தேங்க் பை பேனியன் மேமு, எல்லாருக்கும் நன்றி சொல்லிக்கிறேன்.
So, I'm not sure if I would do justice to by translating what Amli has said, but to summarize, so Amli is our service user and she leads the Home Again program in Trichy. And when she reached Banyan, because of her mental health issues and also the stigma and discrimination she faced in her own community, she recovered. And when there was a question of what to do next and how to define her own recovery pathways and exit pathways, and that is when she wanted to start this Home Again program in Trichy from her own place where she was stigmatized and discriminated because of her mental health issues. And she also recollect the support and the belief Dr. Vandana had on her when she said she wanted to start this Home Again program in Trichy. And initially in Trichy she started off with 2 homes and 10 clients, but initially there were a lot of challenges in terms of getting houses, the questions the house owners asked when she wanted to start the homes, and also a lot of other issues she faced in the community. And she also says that specifically the reason why she wanted to start this Home Again program in Trichy is that one is because of stigma and discrimination, and 2, in those days the mental health services were not accessible to many of them. Either they die on the streets or they continue to take treatment for an indefinite period of time, and the support system was also very poor, and that is the main reason why she wanted to start this Home Again program in Trichy. And now she runs 10 homes there with 50 clients. And initially she also recollect incidences where she used to feel afraid like walking on the streets, but now she feels very proud. And only one thing what is she feels sad is that her parents are no more to see all this. That is the only thing that she feels bad, but then she feels proud at this moment because she was able to do this despite all the challenges.
Thank you, Amli. Thank you, Kirtana. We will continue the session now. We will move on to a conversation between Ms. Shiba and Shapan Bhaskar from our Kerala chapter. Between 1998 and 2013, Shiba ran 2 dance institutes, providing dance classes to many students in her community. She then had to take a break due to circumstances including marriage, pregnancy, her mother's death, and mental ill health. In 2020, she began receiving inquiries about dance classes, and students started coming to Home Again for lessons. She now runs an institute named Kannimozi, marking her successful return as a dance teacher. She will be joined today by Shapan Bhaskar, a social worker by training with over 9 years of experience. Shapan also currently leads the Emergency Care and Recovery Center program in Kerala, and Shapan will offer interpretation support today.
Thank you, Deepika. So, when it comes to Shiba, so naturally the conversation turned into about dance and mudra, and maybe the more people into the dance can more connect with her. And today, we actually, Shiba not sharing all the story about her, but the dance and how the dance give her all the strength and all. And I have had the privilege to work with her since 2018. And the most of the discussions we had centered more on the dance and her passion. And despite my little knowledge about dance, I started to research about dance and some movements, because it's the only way I can connect well with Shiba and be part of a support system. And Shiba here talk about how the dance give her strength in her life, and which helped her to move forward. Shiba. So Shiba little anxious because she's love to express in more in her movements, dance and all, but little more anxious in words. But today I make her to speak. We can make her to speak. Shiba, നിങ്ങൾ ഇപ്പം ഡാൻസ് ചെറുപ്പം കാലം മുതലേ നിങ്ങളെ കഥകൾ ഞാൻ കുറേ കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പം നിങ്ങൾ ചെറുപ്പകാലം മുതൽ ഏറ്റവും കൂടുതൽ നിങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞ കാര്യം ഡാൻസ്, അതെങ്ങനെ വളർന്നു, ആൻഡ് അതിലുള്ള പാഷൻ എങ്ങനെ ഡെവലപ്പായി, എങ്ങനെ അതെങ്ങനെ കരിയറിലേക്ക് വന്നു. അപ്പം ആ ഡാൻസ് എങ്ങനെയാണ് കൂടുതലായിട്ട് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് മുന്നോട്ട് പോകാനായിട്ട്, ഇത്രയും ചാലഞ്ചസ് നിങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞു, നിങ്ങളുടെ ലൈഫിൽ കുറേ ചാലഞ്ചസ് ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ട്, ബട്ട് സ്റ്റിൽ അത് മുന്നോട്ട് കൊണ്ടുപോകാൻ വേണ്ടി ഡാൻസ് എങ്ങനെയാണ് നിങ്ങളെ സഹായിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത്?
ഡാൻസാണ് എൻ്റെ ബ്രീത്ത്. ഡാൻസിലൂടെയാണ് എനിക്കെല്ലാം ചെയ്യാൻ ആഗ്രഹം. എനിക്കെല്ലാം തന്നത് ഡാൻസാണ്. കുട്ടിക്കാലം മുതലേ ഡാൻസ് പഠിച്ചാണ് വളർന്നത്. വലുതായപ്പോഴും എല്ലാം നൽകിയത് ഡാൻസാണ്. പിന്നെ മാരേജൊക്കെ വന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ ഓരോ പ്രോബ്ലംസ് കൊണ്ട് ഡാൻസ് നഷ്ടപ്പെടുകയുണ്ടായി. വീണ്ടും ഞാൻ ഒരു ലൈഫിൽ ഫെയിൽഡായ സമയത്ത് എനിക്ക് ഡാൻസാണ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നത്. ബാനിയനിലൂടെ ഞാൻ നൃത്തത്തിലേക്ക് വീണ്ടും വന്നു. അങ്ങനെ എനിക്ക് വളരെ സന്തോഷമായി. ബാനിയൻ എനിക്ക് ഒരുപാട് സഹായങ്ങൾ ചെയ്തു നൃത്തത്തിലൂടെ വീണ്ടും കണ്ടിന്യൂ ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട്, എല്ലാം ഒന്നും കൂടി എല്ലാം ശരിയാക്കി എടുക്കാനായിട്ട് ഡാൻസ് തന്നെ എനിക്കെല്ലാം നൽകി.
So what she's convinced to say that the dance gave everything to her. From childhood itself, it gave happiness, it gave her a good career, it gave a good discipline for her life. So she believes that the dance is her life and breathe. And now, due to some life trials, she paused her career for a while, and now she reborning and re-establishing a dance institute, as Deepika mentioned, the Kannimozi Institute started, and now she again restarting her career as a dance teacher. And one more thing I want to add here is she's despite this she's a dancer, she's a good devotee of Lord Krishna, and her spirituality, all things she used to share with me. So once she shared one Lord Krishna vigraha to me, and she shares that spiritual connection to me. I thought I was a special person for me, until I saw another Lord Krishna in another photo shared by Vandana ma'am. So there is two special person. I thought Shiba had the knack to equalize or something, to manage her relationships and all. So Shiba, ഈ ലോർഡ് കൃഷ്ണയായിട്ട് നിങ്ങൾ എത്രത്തോളം അടുത്തായിട്ടുണ്ട്? എനിക്കൊരു വിഗ്രഹം തന്നു നിങ്ങളെ, ആൻഡ് വന്ദന മാമിന് ഒരു വിഗ്രഹം കൊടുത്തു. അതിൽ എന്താണ് അപ്പം നിങ്ങൾ കൂടുതലായിട്ട് ഇഷ്ടപ്പെടുന്ന ആൾക്കാർക്കാണോ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ എല്ലാവർക്കും കൊടുക്കാൻ പറ്റണമെങ്കിൽ കൊടുക്കുമോ? എന്താണ് നിങ്ങൾ വിഗ്രഹം കൊടുത്തതിലൂടെ ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചത്?
ഭഗവാന്റെ ഡിവോട്ടിയാണ് ഞാൻ. അപ്പോൾ എനിക്കൊരു ഹെൽപ്പ് ചെയ്ത അവർക്ക് നൽകണമെന്നുള്ള ഇതിലാണ് കൊടുത്തത്. പിന്നെ എനിക്ക് ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിൽ നിന്ന് വരാനായിട്ടും അതുപോലുള്ള എല്ലാ കാര്യങ്ങളും ചെയ്തു തന്നത് ശരിക്കും പറഞ്ഞാൽ വന്ദന മാമും സാറുമൊക്കെയാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ ബനിയാനിൽ വരുന്നതിന് കാരണമായതും അങ്ങനെയുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ ശരിക്കും പറഞ്ഞാൽ ചെയ്തു തന്നതും, എനിക്ക് ക്ലാസ് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്തു തന്നതും, പുതിയൊരു ക്ലാസ് ഇട്ട് തന്നതും, എല്ലാ കാര്യങ്ങളും ചെയ്തു തന്നത് ശരിക്കും പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ സാറും മാമുമാണ്. അപ്പോൾ മാമാണ് അത് കൂടുതലും ചെയ്തു തരാനായിട്ട് തയ്യാറെടുത്തത്. അപ്പോൾ അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഞാൻ.
So as I mentioned, she's a great devotee of Lord Krishna, and so she wanted to give a best gift to the person who helped her a lot and regain her all her strength. So that's why she chose the Lord Krishna and they give to the two favorite person. I don't know, maybe more favorite person may come up. Okay, let's pray for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiba. Thank you, Shapin. It was so nice to hear Shiva speak. Hopefully next time we'll get to see her dance as well for us. Finally, from our Maharashtra chapter, we're joined by Sonal and Gautami today. Sonal is a resident of Jyoti Nivas in Ratnagiri, where she has lived since November 2019. Sonal is involved in several daycare activities, which include jewelry making, candle making, and paper crafts, and works at the Banyan's Umang tea stall. Aspiring to become a beautician, she's learning skills to support her goal of financial independence.
नमस्ते सभी को। मेरा नाम सोनल जामुड़कर है। मैं नागपुर से हूँ। मेरी उम्र 34 साल है और मैं आपको मेरे जीवन की कुछ कथा शेयर करना चाहती हूँ। मेरे घर में मेरी माँ और मेरी 2 बहन रहती है। दोनों बहनों की अभी शादी हो चुकी है, लेकिन मेरी बड़ी बहन के पास मेरी माँ रहती है। और मेरे पिताजी बचपन में ही गुज़र गए और मैं बचपन से लेकर आज तक अपने बहनों के साथ और माँ के साथ एक बड़ी हुई हूँ। और मेरे पिताजी जब गुज़र गए तब मैं बहुत छोटी थी। उसके बाद
My name is Sonal. I'm 34 years old and I'm from Nagpur. I have my mother and 2 sisters. My father passed away when I was very young. Both my sisters are married and my mother now lives with my elder sister.
22 साल में मेरी जब कठिन दिन गुजर रहे थे तब मेरी लड़ाई मेरे जीजा के साथ हुई थी। तब मेरी लड़ाई जीजा के साथ होने के बाद में तब से मैंने अपना घर छोड़ दिया। उसके बाद मैं ठाणे मेंटल हॉस्पिटल में 4 महीने तक रही। वहाँ मेरा ट्रीटमेंट चलता रहा। ट्रीटमेंट चलते वक्त मुझे पता चला कि मुझे मानसिक बीमारी है। तो वहाँ से मैं जब निकली तब मैं अंकुर फाउंडेशन सावंतवाड़ी में मैं 2 साल तक रही। वहाँ पर मैं वहाँ से फिर बैनियन जब मैं आई 2021 में मैं जब बैनियन को आई तब मुझे ऐसा लगा कि मेरे 3 सालों में काफ़ी कुछ ऐसा बदलाव आया है। कुछ सीखने को मिल रहा था तो अच्छा लग रहा था कि बैनियन में यहीं पर रहो करके। फिर भी मेरी मम्मी की, मेरे बहनों की अभी भी मुझे बहुत याद आती है, क्योंकि मैं बहुत दिनों से ऐसी ये हो रही हूँ कि मैं अपने घर जाऊँ, अपने बहनों से मिलूँ, उनके साथ बातचीत करूँ। तो ये मेरा सपना था कि मैं ब्यूटी पार्लर का कोर्स करूँ। तो हमारे होम अगेन में मैडम ने पूछा था मुझे कि तुम क्या ब्यूटिफिकेशन करना चाहती हो, अपने जीवन में तुम क्या करना चाहती हो। तब मैंने बताया कि मुझे मैडम ब्यूटिफिकेशन करना है। तब मैडम ने कहा कि ठीक है, हम तुम्हारा ब्यूटिफिकेशन कर देंगे। तब मेरा सपना पूरा हुआ। ब्यूटिफिकेशन मैंने किया। वहाँ मुझे डिप्लोमा भी मिला, सर्टिफिकेट भी मिल चुकी है। अब मैं अपने घर पहुँचना चाहती हूँ और अपनी शादी करना चाहती हूँ, अपना घर बसाना चाहती हूँ और अपने घर में मेरा सपना है कि मैं पार्लर का कोर्स करूँ और मैं खुद का पार्लर खोलना चाहती हूँ।
So when she was 22 and she went through some difficult times in life, she fought with her brother-in-law and she left home. She was taken to Thane Mental Hospital for treatment and she was there for 4 years. From there she moved to the Ankur Foundation in Sawantwadi, which is in South Maharashtra, where she was for 2 years, and then she moved to the Banyan in 2021. The last 3 years she has learnt. She was asked what she would like to do. She learnt, she did a beautician course. She completed it and got her diploma. And and in future she would like to do more such courses, set up her own beauty parlor, get married and have her own house.
मैं कहना चाहती हूँ कि मेरा सपना है कि मैं शादी करूँ और अच्छे से घर बसाना चाहती हूँ, और मेरे फैमिली से मुझे बहुत ऐसा ये होता है, मैं फील करती हूँ अपने घर में भी कि मैं अपने फैमिली से मिलूँ करके। बहुत मुझे ऐसा बहुत दुख हो जाता है, जब मैं रोती हूँ रात में भी, नींद में मैं कभी कभी रोती हूँ, और मैं बताती हूँ, जैसे गॉड को मैं बताती हूँ, मैं जीसस को मानती हूँ। हर संडे मैं चर्च जाती हूँ, प्रेयर करती हूँ, और प्रेयर में बताती हूँ अपने घर के परिवार के बारे में भी मैं प्रेयर करती हूँ सबके लिए। थैंक यू, धन्यवाद।
So her dream is to one day get married and have her own life, and she would like to also go back, meet with her mother and her sisters. They have so far not come to meet her. She prays every day to Jesus, whom she believes in, that she is able to visit her family again. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that some of you may wonder why Amali or Sonal or Sheba are sharing their experiences, and it may be a little distressing, but I think these experiences are at the center of everything that we stand for, and it's lived experience that has guided us all through the 3 decades. Therefore, even if it's distressing, I think there is the safe space here and a sense of community that we're able to offer them, and therefore, even if people are crying, even if we are moved, and even if we're distressed, I think it's important to talk about this as much as it is about, as much as this evening is about celebrating the wins. So, मैंने जो बोला, हाँ, ठीक है, you're translating. Okay, I just wanted to just come in there, and nobody here was forced to speak. They wanted to speak. They wanted to present their stories of resilience and courage, and they're here so lived experience can be centered.
Thank you, Vandana. Huge thanks to all of our speakers today for being here with us and sharing your stories with us.
And I'd also like to add that there are many others in this room amongst our colleagues, including myself, that lives with a mental health issue. So it's not just our 3 friends here, but there's many colleagues in the Banyan. There's 32% of our workforce that live and work with a mental health issue. So they're not alone in this struggle or in this journey. Yeah.
I'll now request Dr. Lakshmi Shankaran to introduce our next set of panelists and the panel. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Hi everyone. We're moving on to the next panel discussion. I would like to invite, well, before that, the theme is about mental health narratives in the realm of art and creativity. And what art is a lot. It encompasses many things. And for this, we invite Mr. Bharatbala, who onto the stage. I'd like to introduce him. Mr. Bharatbala is an award-winning Indian filmmaker known for his evocative advertising campaigns and documentaries. All of you must have heard of Vande Mataram, the beautiful signature tune that's very moving. He showcases untold stories from across India. Some beautiful glaciers frozen were some of the things I saw on YouTube. It's like a river, but it's just so beautifully taken that it's almost like you're there at the foothills of the mountains. So he uses innovative techniques to captivate global audiences. His work, as I've said, is Incredible India campaign for India's national anthem. He's also directed feature films and large-scale events like the Commonwealth ceremonies. Chennai born, and a very interesting film with Dhanish and Parvati, I think many of you must have seen, called Marian, which was also nominated for awards. So inviting Bharat onto the right in the middle. Next, it's our honor to invite Ms. Chinki Sinha of Outlook. She's a self-proclaimed curator of absences. She covers stories typically rejected from mainstream media, part of Outlook, which all of us are very familiar with, very bold stories. And she's the editor. She features outsiders like dissenters, sex workers, including a gorgeous cover with Shah Rukh Khan, a mosaic that captivated. Pardon? Right, really beautiful, very, sort of captivating covers and good stuff. So she's done her master's in journalism and she moved to India in 2008. She's also she's worked with the BBC News, the Al Jazeera, and in 2021 she became the Outlook's first female editor in the 26-year history. It's really an honor. And what struck me when I was, trying to find out a little more about Chinki is that a quote from her says that we must listen and listen to all stories. On the Asur tribe, the Mahashisarur, who was our ancestor. So some very fascinating work and features that have been covered by Outlook. So we're really happy to have them. And we're inviting them to share about, let's start with Bharat on, how do you look at media and the intersection of mental health narratives and creativity? What is your experience and insight over years of making films and documentaries?
Vanakkam, good evening. I don't know why I have to speak, but it's such a compelling evening so far. And we are now going to talk from a cinema point of view. I don't think that's that exciting as the true stories that we have seen of people who spoke earlier than in this panel earlier. I think when I keep, spend some time with Vandana, and I think it's every time I spend time and I start hearing stories, I feel that these kind of stories need to come through cinema, because, see, when you bring, we so far cinema to large extent have, packaged and glamorized even the pain and the human sufferings. So I feel that if we can present the truth, we can at least educate, engage, humanize, most importantly, humanize. And I hear that, we were talking about communities, right? And trying to bring home again through community living. What I felt that is, why should it be addressed when there is an issue, whether it's a disability or a mental health? I think we need to show of all these values in everyday living. So I just, it's fresh in my mind, so I'm saying, I just came from Nagaland and I was in the remotest corners, and the people everyday living, they're helping each other and they live as community. So if there is distress or if there is some disability, it will be natural. Why can't we come together more as a community living in our everyday life rather than only during you have some illness or some issue? So I think cinema, it's just an opportunity at this point of time. I'm more into documentaries at this stage rather than fiction. I think we can address and bring about these amazing stories, compelling transformation of humanity, what we are seeing through Banyan stories. If they can be brought to regular people, everyday people, I think there will be a subconscious engagement of humanity, and there could be a very simple way of transforming and sensitizing people to engage. And then this whole idea of stigma, it'll take time, but I think telling stories is important. I don't know the answer, but it's a long answer.
Yes. Thank you. Telling stories is important, And Chinki says we must listen, and we must listen to all stories. So Chinki, that's a very powerful statement. So how would you respond as an editor of a magazine, and to understand people living with mental health issues? How does that pan out as a feature? What's your experience on that?
See, my experience, firstly, thank you so much for having me here. I was talking to Vandana about this, and we've been asking her to help us, take out an issue on mental health. I don't know if I should even call it mental health, because health is such a whatever term. So I think it's important for people to understand this language, and how do we articulate madness, for instance. So literature, of course, has many examples, artists, of course, but in media, what I feel is that we don't have compelling stories, and I think largely we don't understand how what they're experiencing. We don't have empathy, we don't have kindness. And I think I was reading something, and it says it is actually emotions and not reason that disrupt universal ideologies. And I think this feeling too deeply, I think, is an asset. And I think we must listen and try to find and figure out a way. So we came all the way to actually request Vandana to help us do this. And we would be very, very grateful, because we don't know how to do this. And we need people to help us out and kind of maybe do an issue with, like even to transcribe hallucinations, for instance, because they see what we don't see. And just because they see something that we don't see doesn't mean it's not okay. Or it's not, also it's beautiful. If you look at this Japanese artist's work, Yayoi, I don't even know how to pronounce her, but it's Kusama. She checked herself in a psychiatric ward in 1977, and she's called the Queen of Polka Dots. And when she was 7 years, she used to see pumpkins, violets, and dogs, and they were talking to her. And that's how she started doing these large-scale works, which is called the Infinity series and the Observation series. That's one example. She still lives there. Every day she walks, she's 93 now, she walks to her studio and paints, sometimes for 50 hours, because that's how she calms herself. But she is the greatest living artist, woman artist in today's day and age. And I think that's very beautiful for us to see that and to experience that, because everyday reality sometimes can get very overwhelming. And from my own experience, my family had, my uncle died of, I think he died by suicide, we still don't know. He was schizophrenic, and he was in the asylum, in Ranchi, Kake. And at that time, it was very different, I'm talking back in the days. And so I think we do owe it to people to tell them stories, and a lot of people may think that narratives don't really work, because we are living in this digital age of too much information and facts and data and numbers and all that. But I think feelings really matter, and that's the toughest thing to do, actually, to talk to people, to make them talk to you, to also build trust, I think. So so maybe Vandana will help us, I hope.
Just one question to Bharat about we're in the era of TikTok, Reels on Instagram, and you said that maybe people don't watch documentaries. But I'm wondering whether, we become so insensitive because there's an overload on our sensorium. And therefore, then how does one capture, because you work in media and campaigns, so how does one grab the eyeballs of a story? For example, the Banyan working with people with homelessness, with severe mental issues, how do you arrest the attention and transform some kind of a change in perspective? Is it possible? Because, what's your take on that? Using visual media.
I don't have an answer.
You don't have an answer. Right.
I am still trying. For me itself, I can give only from our experiences. We are making, uncovering untold stories of India, and they're all real stories. And there are no actors, real people. Now, when you make with them, how does it interest people? So we put the value of what they see in mainstream cinema, film it well, put a background score, package it like cinema. So I think a little bit of that packaging is to be given so that we can shove it down people. It's important, and most important is consistency. You can't just bring one film once in a while and expect people to today they need to be constantly fed. So I think we have to keep trying, and there is the one or two stories will break out and which will help us to tell the other stories. So just let's keep trying.
Let's keep trying. So I'm just wondering, we could take maybe a couple of responses from the audience. Would anybody like to say something or ask something about media? Yes, Lavina?
I have two children. I have an 11-year-old and an 9-year-old.
Oh, just a sec, Lavina. We'll get a mic for you. Lavina, could you introduce yourself?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lavina Rao. I moved to Chennai a year ago. My husband is heads Boeing here in Chennai, and I'm happy to be in India. My husband is of Indian descent, born and raised in India. So we're very happy to be here. We're very happy to know Vandana. And my question is actually about the power of media. I have two children. My son has mental health issues. He's 11, Devan. My daughter is neurotypical. She's 9. On Instagram, which they are not on, I am, there's a boy in Chennai, and his name is, his tag is a broke college kid. Sorry, I'm nervous. And he talks about different people in Chennai, and he highlights the difficulties that they're going through. And my children ask me, please, Mom, bring up, we want to see what he posted. And they're actively seeking this out as children. So I think the young people are interested in these issues, but sometimes as we age, we look for the divisions between us. Instead of looking for what unites us, we want to say, they're so different from our generation. But I think they do want to see this represented, but we're not creating enough content for them. So I guess my question is, are we challenging ourselves to see what they want? This broke college kid is actually has so many followers, and he is producing great content. But we also have to challenge ourselves to say, are we producing enough of the content to show what the real lives of people in India and abroad are?
Thank you, Lavina. Would one of you like to respond?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of books available. For instance, there was a writer called Swadesh Deepak. We still don't know if he's alive or dead. In 2006, he disappeared from his house. He went for a morning walk, and he wrote this fantastic book called. It was written in Hindi. He was a Sahitya Academy winner, who had schizophrenia, and he was tried to attempt suicide, twice, and burnt himself and all these kinds of things. And he wrote this book called Maine Mandu Nahi Dekha, which loosely translates as I have not seen Mandu, where actually, you have to also actively seek out things that are out there. There are a lot of stuff available. It's just that we're not willing to confront the unfamiliar, because it's so difficult to understand or even to empathize, because generally we have been brought up with this whole thing, ki yaar, wo to pagal hai, and it's this dismissal kind of situation. And, before coming here, Vandana asked me to read a poem. I don't have a poem, I have a passage from that book. I think it just got translated. And it says, this is one of the instances of the language of madness, basically. And how do you talk about it? It says that, why are the heavenly forces my enemies? Pain of the kind to shake my dreams. That night when I slit both wrists with a blade, I placed my hands in a tin. I did not let a single drop stain the sheet of the floor. I've always liked cleanliness. Parul goes to fetch a doctor. Geeta keeps slapping me, a series of light slaps. She lights a cigarette and stuffs it into my mouth. I smoke it. She teaches science. Later she said that in such cases one does not allow the patient to fall asleep or else. In my heart of hearts, I abused her viciously for that or else. She could have let me go. She could have let me become an or else. Dying is the most important task for me. I tried 3 times and 3 times I failed. I lost my reputation. My bronze age did not end. I should abandon myself. Why does one always think of someone else's body while having sex? In those days, I found thermometers very sexy. The movements begin. So I'm just saying that this book is all about these hallucinations, you know. I mean, so there's a lot of stuff available. There are a lot of films, like Sophie's Choice is an excellent film based on a book by William Styron. There's David Graham Cooper, who has written a lot of stuff. Even in India, I think Jerry Pinto brought out an anthology. It's called Papa Elsewhere, which has a lot of people who talk about their experiences of either dealing with mental health situation or having a loved one who has had such experiences. So yeah, I mean, that's there, but also media needs to play a bigger role because we are all stuck in this click and bait kind of journalism where we want numbers and nobody is interested in these kinds of stories. When I was a reporter, it was always about breaking news, all kinds of things. Nobody looks at education, health in the ways that they should be looking at. And somehow we don't like to talk about feelings, and I think that's very important, and I think that's where we should be going now, hopefully.
Thank you, Chinki, for the beautiful poem also, and you had also published a poem by Vikram Seth to his mother on your cover. Really beautiful. I would like Bharat to respond to Lavina's question that there are many non-actors, non-professionals who make films, and what's your response? And they do pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I think some of them are very compelling. So we watched some of them, and we've been associated now with programs of content for school children. So when we started discussing with kids, we figured out that we should not be making the content, it should be the kids who should be making it. So we've just started filming in both urban and rural. There's a set of questions that have come from children, and so they are in conversation with each other. So let's say we just filmed in Nagaland, we'll show that to school children in Mumbai. And now these kids, when they go to school, what do they have in their lunch boxes? What do they do when they wake up? And what is it that they want to do? What's their friendship all about? Whatever their issues are, we've just taken and said, let's figure out a universal way of presenting that. So I think in about few months' time, we will have stories from Pan-India, not made by us, made by children. Well, let's see, wait and watch what they say.
Thank you so much, and I guess you could interact with the panelists after the session. So in other words, my takeaway is that we co-create with the audience, right? So thank you for coming, and
thank you, Vandana, and I'm going to take this opportunity to say, please read Outlook and subscribe to Virtual Bharat.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Just if you can give us a second to set up, we will now screen the film made by Mr. Bharatbala Ganpati on Home Again for the Hans Foundation and the Rural India Supporting Trust, and then we will move to the last panel. Thank you.
On my way home, I remember when I used to be hidden behind large walls that kept me away from the world.
My mind took me to dark, confusing places. I was shunned by my family and society, labeled as crazy and cast away. But I'm restored.
I was kept alive by my love for my daughter. I am a mother, you see. I stayed alive for my sister, widowed and alone. I am a sister.
I found friends who were kind to me. I'm a survivor.
I've known pain, but I have courage. I've known fear, but I have faith. I'm back home now, and I love life.
என் பேர் கோசலை,
Ajay,
ஜானகி, ராம்குமார், அமலி,
Logesh.
Building a community that celebrates inclusion and diversity.
Thank you so much for doing that for us. Now, for the final panel, I will call on Ms. Shweta Rawat, Ms. Kannimozi Karunanidhi, Mr. N. Ram, and Ms. Supriya Sahu. On the stage, please. While we just get set up, we wanted to, sort of reiterate the contribution RIST has made to just secure what we have seen here. It's not a program, but it's basically a movement that RIST has helped us secure to facilitate interdependence, to facilitate a family, and to facilitate participation. And this is a lifelong commitment that they have made to a program that, is going to be lifelong. So this is, what they have done is extremely inspiring to so many other philanthropies. So thanks very much once again, and then we will request you to come on stage. May I now request Ms. Rawat to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the very, very warm welcome to Chennai. And today, Vandana welcomed me into her home, and I had a chance to meet with a lot of the Banyan team that we've only communicated virtually for the past few years. So it was nice to put faces to names and meet everyone in real life. So I appreciate that, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. I'm just going to grab something. Blind now. Just to give you a little bit of context regarding, you've been hearing RIST, the Rural India Support Trust, and the Hans Foundation. So Rural India Support Trust is our trust based in the US, and we fund. The goal from 2007 onwards was to fund projects or commitments to improve access to quality services. And the three pillars we chose were healthcare, education, and disability. Poonam has also mentioned this fact, and you've been hearing from so many experts and people with so much passion about this today, but I have two siblings with intellectual disabilities. So once again, that role of being a family member and having lived with someone, and so it just exposed me from an early age to not just the inadequacies of the system in India, but also opened my eyes to all the possibilities of what could be done and what could happen. So from the very beginning, disability rights, disability awareness of disability issues, and most importantly, finding programs like Home Again and other such programs that Hans and RIST invest in to create that equitable society where everybody has dignity has been the goal for us from the beginning. And the Hans Foundation is an India-based organization which till pre-COVID had about 250 partners across the country working on exactly the same key areas that RIST was doing. Of course, after COVID, the FCRA rules changed. This is a little bit of boring bureaucratic paperwork stuff we had to deal with. But what happened was we couldn't sub-grant the funds anymore from Hans to other partners. So Hans became an implementing agency in the last 5 years. And in that 5 years, we went from a staff of 150 to now about 2,500 people on payroll. And we have 4 regional offices, all in the north and northeastern part of India. In Guwahati, in Lucknow, in Delhi is our head office, and Rajasthan as well, and Chhattisgarh. And RIST, on the other hand, works with partners like the Banyan and other partners in healthcare and education. So that's sort of the relationship between the two entities. And I've been lucky enough to head both, and it's been 15 years now, so it's been a wonderful journey. And it's given me the opportunity to meet people like Vandana and the team she has at the Banyan, but other such people, change makers, across the country. So I don't have much else to say. I think you've heard from people who know a lot more about these issues than I do. It's just been, Home Again for me was just an amazing, amazing idea. And I had the opportunity to visit the Pavlov Mental Hospital in Calcutta. And we went to the men's department because at that time they said, the women's, don't take them to the women's, it's very hardcore. That was what the conversation was, take them to the men's wing. And, I had no idea what I was going to see or expect there. And when we came out of that visit, that is exactly the point when we started talking about deinstitutionalization. And it led to us working on the report with Palm and Banyan National Trust, a lot of doctors from all over India, a lot of institutions, experts, and we were so proud when that report was published. And fortunately, under Dr. Parshuraman, he was still there, and he was such a leading force in that. I had the opportunity to meet him, and all the meetings, he was just such a driving force behind that report, and his energy was very palpable and contagious. So, we're here today to celebrate Home Again, and hope and health and home, all three essentials, starting with dignity, right? The homeless people that you have taken on, and women, like you said, the three sort of disabilities, they're invisible. I mean, and if you're invisible, how can you have dignity? If you're invisible, how can you have rights? So just giving them visibility and giving them that sort of transactional nature we have with society, the give and take that we have, giving them those opportunities and being a part of that is instrumental. And I really hope that, right now we have Home Again in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Maharashtra, and partners are doing similar projects in Assam and in Uttarakhand as well. We have 2 homes there. So everyone has tweaked it a little bit, but the core ideas have remained what Home Again and all the research and the documentation and the data collection that Banyan has done, because you can't really come up with something like this without having the evidence to back it up. And therefore, if things change, and we talked a little bit about that today in the afternoon, is if there's something slips up somewhere, you have the data to sort of identify it and hopefully go in and correct that issue. And, I always say, if it's not working, just try and fix it. And there's no harm in saying, I think we got that wrong. Let's go back to the drawing board and let's figure out another way to make this happen. So I'm not going to take a lot more time. We have a lot of interesting panelists here, but thank you again very much for this event and for this evening. Oh yes, okay. And yes, this endowment, this gift that we're talking about. So we, again, wanted to take Home Again to another scale and to scale it up in across the states and hopefully make it a national plan. And this endowment is 50 crores given to the Banyan for Home Again. So that was the announcement. Yeah. So thank you again. Sorry. Yeah.
I think 400 of us wanted to come on stage and be part of this moment, but we're just going to ask our co-founders, Dr. Vandana and Vaishnavi, to come on stage, and our managing trustee, Mr. Balraj Vasudevan, please to come on stage. We will now formally announce the endowment of Hope, Home and Health, Building Inclusive Communities and Futures. Thank you so very much. Vandana, Vaishnavi and Mr. Balraj, can you please stay back and say a few words?
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you, RIST. And I have only this to say as the honorary treasurer and managing trustee. I'm hoping that Vandana doesn't come with so much more ideas that even this 50 crores will start becoming a shortfall in us. But however, thank you so much.
Yeah, so first of all, Shweta, I think it's just been such a pleasure working with you, RIST and the Hans Foundation over the past 7 or 8 years. The one thing that I find extremely encouraging is that there is an absolute sense of equality in the way in which an organization such as RIST interacts with its partners, which I think is a rarity, because usually in philanthropies there is a sense of condescension when people part with money, and this is large money, and you saw Shweta forget the endowment part, forget the 50 crore part, and finish the rest of her speech and head back to her chair. So that's Shweta for you. So thank you for your affection. Thank you for allowing for all of this to sit so lightly. And thank you for really giving us such a great sense of stability. I know that many of you who are here in the audience are supporters of the Banyan right from our first year. I see Anu, I see Praveen, I see Maslin, I see many of you here. So we've carried a community of volunteers over the past 3 decades. And you've seen us struggle to pay rents. You've seen us struggle to pay salaries. You've seen us hold back your bills for groceries. We have, some of our collaborators here. So, fortunately, that's not going to be the case thanks to RIST support. But like Bharat said, we don't end when the money ends. If there is a need, then we respond to the need. And so please keep in mind, everybody, when you leave the space, that we are comfortable, we are lucky, we are fortunate, but there's always a need for continued support. So don't go back thinking that, hey, the Banyan have all the money that they need and there's no need for any more. So I'm not going to take that bag of rice or empty my, we used to have students who would come and empty their piggy banks. All of that matters as much as this, and you'd appreciate that. So yes, the 50 crores is lovely, and I love you, Shweta, but every rupee, every bag of rice matters just as much, because it's all about a sense of community. Yeah? I have 3 quick points. I have 3 quick points to make. The first is that there was a lot spoken about Home Again, and I understand that this is a celebration around Home Again and around the Banyan. But I have to say that Home Again comes with its set of challenges, and it's very, very important for us. As much as we've shared findings that indicate that there's a great sense of community inclusion, there's houses that we have access to, there are lives that have been bettered, there are people who have found the strength and the courage to do what they do. Equally, we've found resistance. We've had a few people leave homes. We've had a death by suicide recently in Kerala. And we've had some amount of attrition. Not too much now, but in the initial stages. There could be different challenges that crop up later. Now, the reason I'm saying this is that there's no one ideal model or prototype, because we're dealing with people and we're dealing with lives, and life is uncertain. And therefore, Home Again and its future, as much as some of the research will ground it in a sort of in the sort of values that we'll show fidelity to, equally we cannot be completely certain that we won't be taken by surprise and have a new challenge come our way. All that we can say is that we'll remain committed and show fidelity to the values, attempt to show fidelity to the protocols, but also be prepared for the challenges. And it's important to say this because we soon don't want an article coming our way or tweets coming our way that then critique is okay, that criticize and run down Home Again, and that's sometimes also part of the life that organizations such as us experience. The second thing that I wanted to focus on is that the Hope, Home and Health dedication is towards 3 specific activities. One is that all our houses across Kerala and Tamil Nadu, that is a total of 60 houses and 300 people who are in these houses will be cared for in perpetuity, thanks to your grant. So services form the first aspect of the Hope, Home and Health Collaborative. The second, Poonam, you mentioned that scale and uptake. I think a large part of that has been thanks to the sense of collaboration that we hold very dear to us. And here we have, and at request, our collaborators who have actually taken our program, Home Again, in its own contextualized way to scale. And each of them is a veteran social entrepreneur here. So I would request our collaborators who've taken the program to scale in Tirunelveli and Thoothukudi, Mr. Saravanan sir, konjam nikkiringla. Milesh from Altruist, who's taken it to scale in Gujarat. Milesh is an amazing social entrepreneur who's done tremendous work with the government mental hospital as well in Ahmedabad. Dr. Kantaraju, who's taken it to scale in Karnataka. Dr. Swain, who's taken it to scale in Odisha. Mr. Dhavleji, who's taken it to scale in Madhya Pradesh. And from Maria Sadanam, we have Mr. Santosh, who's taken it to scale in Kerala, who also leads. Mr. Santosh also leads a confederation of organizations in Kerala. So it is all about the spirit of collaboration, and therefore the uptake, not just here, but in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, is thanks to this. So that's, sorry? Ashadeep, yeah. They're here. Oh, I didn't realize that. And Ashadeep, of course, our most mature partner, who are now running it completely independently. Ashadeep was founded by Mukulji and Chandanaji. And Anjanaji, and Mukulji is also a Padma Shri winner. Yeah, so collaboration, and that's what the uptake is all about. So we spoke about services, we spoke about uptake. The last point, we spoke a lot about how the world is an unkind place. I think Chinki mentioned that. And I think some of our research has also thrown up those findings that when people are able to face the challenges that they spoke of, Amali and others, and when lives are bettered, it's usually social connections that work. So these social ties and the sense of participation in community, which throws newer experience your way, is somehow lights up people's lives. So experiences, social ties, and a sense of hope. These are things that we're going to dive deeper into and study a little more. So some of the micro research inquiries that otherwise don't find too much of a space within the larger framework of research, which is largely biomedical or largely around remission or reduction in symptoms, I think will now, through this unit, find space. And the very last point, and as a result, we're going to focus on people with lived experience and human service professionals. So that would be social workers and psychologists, and make sure that a new cadre is trained collaboratively. We do have the chairperson of the Madras School of Social Work here, and we are collaborating with the Madras School of Social Work to offer masters in mental health, into which some of these courses, so some of these programs will be integrated, and we're planning to do similar sort of, foster similar collaborations with others. So I think there is a need very definitely for mental health professionals outside of the remit of psychiatry to be engaged in mental health care. So with these words, as usual, I've exceeded my time. Thank you very much, and it's truly a day and an evening to be celebrated. So thank you.
Yeah. Thinking back to the beginnings of the Banyan, I still remember a point of time where nobody challenged these two young things just straight out of college when we said that there would be 30 mentally ill, destitute women in Chennai. And nobody thought that number was strange or too little or too many, because simply nobody had an idea at that point of time. Another thing that we said, and again, I don't know what the rationale for that was that we would be done with mental health in 3 years and move on to our next, whatever project. And it's been more than 3 decades now. And yes, the Banyan has done so much and continues to. But I also wanted to stress that this cannot be one organization and its partners alone. This is not even an issue which is restricted to mental illness per se, because more and more we seem to be getting referrals of people who need places and who are looking for shelters of a variety. I mean, whether it's a person with a learning disability or a person with a progressive disability or even just a person who is old and has no place to go. And one issue is, yes, it's a question of providing of services, but the more important issue is, and this is why I was intrigued when you were guided towards the men's ward in Calcutta. It's not easy to visit an institution or a mental hospital in that sense, but that is something that needs to happen, and it cannot happen only by organizations in the field. We need people to visit. We need people to visit organically, and not just the mental hospitals, also the old age homes, centers for disabled adults, youngsters, because people are still being kept apart. And we talk a lot about deinstitutionalization, and in 20 years, apart from the Banyan, not really seeing much of deinstitutionalization taking place. In fact, we're seeing a trend of people who are pretty happy with largish organizations with no thought of what happens in the future and what the future has to hold for people. And so I'd basically like to appeal to all of you who have been friends of the Banyan to go beyond. I mean, because this is something which is beyond the Banyan. This is an issue which we all need to look in our own backyards, find out what these organizations are, and visit the people who are within those organizations, because not everybody has such an open door policy as the Banyan does. I still remember, the Gurkha next door coming when we had a center in Kilpok, and he had a very interesting proposition. I know I'm not going into that, but it's important. It's important for people to meet other people, and just people from around where you live, and that kind of accountability with community-based monitoring is what this country really needs at this point of time. So yes, it needs definitely more organizations like the Banyan, more partners like what the Banyan network has, but it also needs society to start doing its bit. And yes, money helps, but really looking after our own backyard and the organizations in our own neighborhoods and reaching out to the people over there is critical. So not to bum everybody out, but do think about this, because think about what you can do beyond the Banyan and beyond what the Banyan is doing in the mental health space. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. B. Thank you, Vaishi. Thank you, Vandana. Now for the last segment, the very last segment, I will request Ms. Supriya Sahu, Additional Chief Secretary and Principal Secretary, Health and Family Welfare and Environment and Mental Health Rights Crusader, to say a few words on government uptake of such models.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and congratulations, Vandana and team. I'm so happy to be, and I'm lucky to be a part of this milestone in your journey. Thank you to the entire team, and congratulations again. I think starting from Bharatbala's moving film, where we saw those faces coming out of the darkness and talking about the identity, the pride with which they spoke about, themselves, their names. I think that was very moving, and that is where we need to go to. I really do not know whether I should really detail the government uptake, and that will be really, a very elaborate kind of an exercise, and for an evening where we are celebrating, I just wanted to say that what I'm seeing now is that we need a new paradigm of care when it comes to mental health. We cannot be putting people in these age-old institutions, asylums, and not think about rehabilitation. I want to just say one important thing, and I think it will take a lot of courage, not only for institutions like Banyan, but it will take a lot of courage for government, it will take a lot of courage for doctors, it will take a lot of courage for caregivers to look at the entire issue of mental illness as a human rights issue. I think that is where, if we are able to do that, if we are able to look at from that perspective, I think many things, the cloud which is there in front of our eyes would vanish. So I think that's one point I wanted to say, that you need a new paradigm of care, and that new paradigm of care has to be with community. It cannot be without community. You give me one program of government which has succeeded where people and communities have not been involved. Nothing. I can give hundreds of examples of programs. When you involve local community, you involve people, you succeed. And you sustain that program. So that's one point I wanted to change. I wanted to state here. I think the second point is that it also has to be a collaborative society, working in a very age-old kind of setup, where we tend to think that we are doing the best. It is a very retrograde kind of a thing, You need to learn what's happening, what are the new ideas coming up. That's very important. And again, that will take. But therefore, the last point is that we need to build a collaborative society. The point that is being made again and again. So it has to be a collaborative society, and I think as far as government of Tamil Nadu is concerned, very progressive. Already partnered with Banyan for ECRC programs. We have 17 emergency care and rehabilitation centers in Tamil Nadu. 8 are being run by the government and 9 are being run by Banyan in partnership with NGOs. From the time that the program has been launched, that was 2018 onwards, more than 2,700 people have gone back home. What more proof we need to see that a collaborative approach does not work? So I think it is to the credit of the government also that they made several steps and collaborated, and I think these kind of real stories are the stories of courage and the stories of change that we are looking forward to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, madam. I will now request Mr. Ram, a personal hero to many of us and somebody who tells India's story, to say a few words about the development sector and what's next for us in terms of partnerships. Thank you, Mr. Ram.
Thank you. I think the government has a very important role to play this. Let nobody belittle that or deny that. There's a lot of talk about NGOs. In fact, I often talk to Vandana and say, don't call yourself an NGO. That's obvious that you're a non-government organization. Find some other word this. Because NGOs are NGOs and NGOs, and some of them have come under a lot of pressure and even assaults. They've been shut down, and the new the new rules applying to them are quite severe and sometimes repressive. FCRA is, a number of organizations that have come under pressure or been forced to shut down. That's okay. I don't have to go into that. But governments have a very important role to play. And then you have an organization like the Banyan. I remember from 1993, wasn't it? When you started, I visited Adakkalam, and neighbors used to complain. And the police, wherever they found a vulnerable woman on the streets being abused, they'd bring her to Vandana and Vaishnavi. I remember that. Not that we did very much, but we sort of empathized with it, gave it some prominence or publicity. And then, to my surprise, you used the word organically, right? Yeah, it's organic, just as this meeting has grown organically. But I think it's been sustained, it's been organic, but it's also, there are leaps. Somebody has to do a history of ideas that have developed and the kind of interactions, the kind of people who have been drawn in that early period and the middle period, to see how this has grown. And then I think many organizations develop factions, they fight each other. I don't know if you ever had that, but I didn't notice it. And then you brought in others. I think it's a remarkable story, 30 odd years old. And the kind of people I've seen come forward, it surprises me. There's so many organizations in need of help, some desperate help, but they've all come to you, and yet you want more, and that's a good thing. So the sustained quality of this effort and the growth that we have seen is quite remarkable, and I hope there are more organizations like that. Now, coming to our benefactor, the donor, the philanthropist, there's also the Ashim Premji Foundation, the Tata Trust, our own Aarti Krishna, and various others, some very quiet contributors. I think it's remarkable. They've been drawn to this work, but we've got to give them full credit for supporting it. And Tamil Nadu is lucky. The South is lucky in large part, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. it's not for nothing that Tamil Nadu's cause is often ranked as the #1 state in India today's State of the States ranking year after year. It's not just the work of any one government, but I think a certain movement, a certain set of values, whatever the faults, I think that's really helped. And I recently read an article by Arvind Subramaniam, a very short one in the Financial Times, on Tamil Nadu's manufacturing success, where he attributes much of the success, good policies, but also when we want to be negative about them, we call them bureaucrats. But but the civil servants, the experienced ones who actually are in the field, represented by our exemplary health secretary here, I think Arvind Subramaniam, who is Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, I think he gives a lot of credit to them. Very unusual these days because everyone blames the bureaucrats. But I think if you have good government policies on this, it's going to do well. I'm not saying it because my friend is an MP. Of course, that's another reason, but but I think it's really the case, and the South has to assert its primacy, along with perhaps Maharashtra and so on, in this respect, that social indicators are very progressive. They are far in advance of what is that? I have a slight dissent with Dr. Kishore, and I said something to Kannimozi about that. When he said our people are happier than people in developed countries. Now that's a bit of a tall claim. It's okay for the audience because per capita income also matters, capabilities matter, education matters, and so on. Anyway, we can go on about it, but the role of this interaction between what do you call it? Development organization, is it?
Development sector.
The development sector, not quite.
but that's a fact. That's
yeah, but the interaction between these organizations, which has been very well brought out in these discussions, I think it's what it's all about. So, but if you look at overall health, Tamil Nadu is in the lead. Kerala, of course, has even better, historically has had better social indicators. Maharashtra, parts of it, so on. But we have that advantage. But perhaps mental health, there have been some deficits. And we look to our health minister, the health secretary, the chief minister, and the legislators represented here by the leader on the parliamentary party, to, I think, strengthen this effort. Perhaps there's more to be done. Yeah, there is clearly more to be done. And I think you got to, I think the health secretary can bridge this gap of understanding about health. Because I've often heard that it has not been quite satisfactory in recent times. The institute, particularly the functioning of the institutions, the government institutions in this area. So I think there's more to be done. So let's not get complacent.
Thank you, Mr. Ram. Now the last speaker of the day, Chinki spoke about emotional intelligence. I think she's one of the few rare politicians with emotional intelligence, and we're so proud to be associated with her. I will request Ms. Karunanidhi to say a few words about crossing party lines and taking up causes such as this with utmost seriousness and sustaining it past the election date. So I will just request her to say a few words.
I'd like to first congratulate the Banyan, Vandana, and everybody Vaishnavi and everybody who works with her for this amazing day, and also thank Ms. Rawat for the great kindness, and of course knowing the Banyan and knowing Vandana, even 500 crores is not going to be enough.
Because the work. Add.
No, I completely, and I'm with you when you say that, because so much needs to be done. And yeah, what did you want me to talk about? Yeah, I think the most important thing about Banyan is it has not stagnated in its ideas and its form and the way it thinks. It has evolved continuously over the years, learnt, reinvented itself, and I'm sure they've come a long way, just not in its structure, but the way they think about mental health and how they have to support people. And I think the evolution today is when we talk about home again. I think it's an amazing thing that Banyan has come up with today, that reintegrating, because I think society, good governance is inclusiveness and taking everybody along. So I think the most important thing is just not reaching out people who are in despair and who need help. I think it is reintegrating them back into society with dignity, with confidence, and with a hope of the future. And I think Home Again is about that. And I think to sustain it, of course, civil society support, understanding, and I think government also has to reinvent its policies. And I like to tell Vandana one thing, when she was talking about criticism and tweets. I think the more criticism you get and the more number of people talking against you means that you're doing something right. I like to say that to Vandana and to the health secretary, because I really think they are doing something right and they're trying to break away from the norm. So I'm with those two women. I support them and I stand by them because they're doing great work. Sustainability comes from not stopping to think. Sustainability comes from having the courage to go beyond. And I think sustainability comes from breaking away from what norms, because I think a lot of people who are against this, who are criticizing this, who want to stop this, I think it comes from some deep-rooted fear. Fear from not being able to accept change. Change is one of the biggest challenges. I think that also leads to mental health issues. So I think that fear is where all this negativity stems from. But I think any government, any organization, any society has to go beyond that to break away and become a better society and create a space for everybody. So I think all of us coming together, the governments, the bureaucracy and civil society organizations like this, people, everybody coming together, I think is what will make models like this sustainable. Just not in mental health, I think across all sectors, when it comes to health entirely, when you talk about manufacturing or you talk about agriculture, you talk about education, I think reinventing and being open to change is the key. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's enough of me, so I will request Akila to come on stage to give the vote of thanks, and we will conclude the session.
Thank you, Shweta, for being here for this very special event. Thank you, Bharatbala, for sharing your insightful film with us. It was wonderful. To all our speakers and panelists, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your insights with us today. I'd like to express our gratitude to Kiran Rao of Amethyst for letting us have this beautiful setting for the evening. To everyone at the Banyan, all those who worked behind the scenes to make this event possible today. And a huge shout out to all our partner organizations. Vandana has introduced them to you, but I am going to mention their names again. Ashadeep, Maria Sadanam, GASVS, Altruist, Oasis, DMHP, Arsoya, Chetna Jewels International, and Green Dot. It is your commitment, it is, that helps us, the work that you do, that helps us all collectively make a tangible difference in the lives of those who need it the most. I have to thank Vijaya Bhaskar. You would have seen all of us sit down, get up, little bit not up, but she's been standing here all evening and going at it. I mean, you're just amazing. And finally, to everyone who's here today, as Vandana said, we see a lot of old-time supporters, people who've been with the Banyan for over 30 years, and several new friends of the Banyan. Thank you. It is, the fact that you're here implies that you believe in the mission of the Banyan and will help us work towards a truly inclusive, mental health friendly society going forward. Thank you very, very much for being here. Yes, Renal. Okay, Renal is reminding me, I have to congratulate Vandana for winning the award that you did recently. And please join us for dinner. Do not leave now. We're going to lock the doors. Please join us for dinner. Yes? சொல்லுங்க.
இந்தியாவுக்கு ஒரு சர்வீஸ் சொன்னீங்களா சார்? தமிழ்நாடு வந்து லக்கி ஸ்டேட் இல்லை. அது வந்து மோஸ்ட் லக்கி வந்து தூத்துக்குடி.
She must have dreamed. Dinner?